This program is rated GE. Content carried in here is suitable for general family viewing.
Hello, viewer. This is Law Matters premiering today here at KUTV at 7:30. It will be coming to you every Tuesday at this time. This is a program that is educative. It is a program that is informative. It will also give you solutions to legal issues that you may have and give you sometimes instructions on how to go about matters of law that you care about. Therefore, it is a form of legal aid clinic coming to you via television, and you can catch us on our social media handles. We are live on Facebook. We are also can be reached on Twitter handle, and you can also watch us on our main KUTV channel. I am your host, Dr. Ngugi Kingara. In today's program, we are going to be discussing the legal system of this country, Kenya, and we will expound on this topic with the help of our expert guest. And it's a unique guest because she is my first guest of this show and happens to be a partner of this Law Matters program on KUTV. She's also the Dean, Kenyatta University School of Law, located here in Parklands. Dean, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Doctor.
Yes, Dean. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yes, kindly tell us about yourself so that the viewer may know you in all your capacities as an administrator and also as a practitioner in law.
My name is Dr. Faith Kabata, currently the Dean, Kenyatta University School of Law. I'm also a lecturer in the Department of Public Law. My teaching and research interests are generally in international law. I teach international human rights law and the law of international organizations to fourth-year students, public international law to third-year students, and human rights law to second-year students. And I have also done a lot of work around the area of human rights in this country, access to information. I've also published on the right to development. Yes.
Okay. So now here at Kenyatta University, when was this school incepted?
The school was established in 2008 and graduated its first set of students in 2012. Today we boast more than 1,000 lawyers out there as graduates of Kenyatta University School of Law, and they are engaged in different facets of practice of law. There are some that are prosecutors, some that are bar practitioners. We recently had some that were sworn in as magistrates, and there are also others in world-class universities studying master's and PhD programs.
Okay, and I understand that you, in positions of leadership in social institutions of this country, you have some key alumni serving there.
Well, if I could talk about leadership, I would say that the school has produced the president of students at the Kenya School of Law in 2019 and 2020. We also have quite a number of students that have done great things. They have won moot competitions. They have won as best orators globally and also regionally.
Excellent. And now I'm sure some people who are interested, stakeholders, prospective stakeholders are looking to know what is the qualification that admits one into this program or the programs that you have here at Kenyatta University School of Law.
The admission requirements are set by statute, the Kenya Legal Education Act. It's a mean grade of C+ in KCSE and a B plain in English or Kiswahili.
Okay, now I know something is close to your heart, which is the Legal Aid Clinic, which is actually the reason we are partnering. In fact, that's why we are set here at Parklands. Tell us about the Legal Aid Clinic.
Well, to fulfill the university mandate of community outreach, Kenyatta University runs the Kenyatta University Legal Aid Clinic. It's actually much more of a student-led clinic in the sense that students are offering legal aid to ordinary Kenyans under the supervision of faculty staff. The clinic is located in the city campus, that's along Haile Selassie Avenue, and that makes it accessible to ordinary Kenyans. We offer legal advice, legal information, and also law-related information, and sometimes we assist in drafting instruments, drafting pleadings for court proceedings, and also we offer referral services in the sense that where we are of the view that the person is better assisted by a government agency, then we refer them maybe to the Office of the Ombudsman, we refer them to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, or even the National Legal Aid Service.
Okay, so in other words, you're like a resource center where people who are interested can get advice on matters of law and how they can go about it. I think our viewers should know that you are one of our great sponsors within that program that has made this Law Matters program possible. And you, with us, had a set of things that we wanted to accomplish, and mainly to tackle some areas of law. Can you mention some of those things that we'll talk about that the viewer can expect to see in the oncoming programs?
Yeah, in the next 12 weeks, the viewer can expect legal information on family law, that is matters to do with matrimonial property, marriage, divorce, succession, and inheritance. We'll also look at children and the law. We'll look at child maintenance, child custody, and also children and social media. We'll also look at land. We'll also look at labor rights, what the viewer can expect as an employee or as an employer, what are their rights and also what are their obligations. We'll also look at regulation of advocates. We'll be looking at if the viewer was to get into an advocate-client relationship, what the viewer should expect from the advocate. We'll also look at general matters like traffic. We'll also be looking at health and the law, emergency treatment, and also the whole question of medical negligence. We'll also look at business and human rights from the perspective of the right to a clean environment and also rights that are violated in the context of multinational corporations doing business within Kenya.
I know maybe this may sound controversial because people who serve in law, whether in the prosecution or defending clients, may not want to hear about this. Can we expect to hear something about the conduct of those people who practice law and what happens to them? I think you can hear in my suggestion here implicated. We're talking about corruption within the legal system. Can we? Are we going to be talking about those things?
We could try during this season, or we could do it in the next season. But I do believe because those are issues that relate to rights, they do have an effect on rights. They probably will come up during the show.
Yes, and I know that one of the areas that we'll probably talk about today is the Bill of Rights. And I don't know how we can link that to my question there. I think that is great insight if you pick all these topics and then you put them together and the viewer has listened throughout the season. One can be a little bit of a learned friend, if I may put it that way.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. All right. Let me just trace back my steps, particularly about the experience of the student here going to this school. What are the activities that are related to, for example, the legal aid clinic, can they find themselves in that are useful, because in a way they'll be serving within the legal system, although just outside, the formal ways we know?
Well, in terms of student experiences, we teach the Bachelor of Laws program, and what is unique about our program is that we offer practical education in the sense that the student learns by doing. We expose students to clinical aspects of the law as much as possible, and part of it through the legal aid clinic, because then they get to see the law in practice and they get to interact with ordinary Kenyans that have ordinary problems that the law may be able to address, may not be able to address. So that way we ensure that when they go out there in the market, they are not theoretical lawyers. They have a bit of practice, and they also have a bit of work experience, and they also know the inadequacies of the law, so that when they are out there, they will also work towards addressing those and making Kenya a better country and also a better society.
Okay, so those of us who work in television, I know we put our students through, holding cameras, pointing and shooting, and sometimes directing shows. Do your students get to sit, for example, in the Supreme Court and do some work there while they are learning?
Yes, at the end of second year, they go for what is known as judicial attachment, where they are attached to a court for 8 weeks, and they learn fact development. They also do courtroom observation, and they also learn procedure, criminal and civil procedure. So they learn and they see the practice of the law.
Okay, and then another important thing for anyone wanting to train in law in a setup like this one, you do have invited guests, like say, the recently sworn in Chief Justice coming in here and talking about some of the things we are trying to do here, albeit without being part of especially me, not being part of the legal system.
Yes, we reserve Wednesday afternoon for such invited guests to mentor students and also help them chart their own career paths. Also, we do a lot of student mentorship within the school.
Okay, I think what we are trying to do here is paint a picture of from training to practicing, but also back to being a citizen and the relationship that we have with law. Because at the end of the day, all of us are common people, in matters of law, but that law should protect us. Viewers, you may want to tune in every Tuesday so that you know that there are key areas of law that you want addressed. So send in those questions. Even if you're not when the program is happening live, you can send in those questions and we'll keep compiling them and be able to respond to them whenever we have an expert. We have a series of experts lined up, and in order to be able to tackle these topics, we'll make sure that we get the right person for the right topic so that those comprehensive issues can be tackled well. I think viewers, you have great insight, and we are coming back to you more. Stay tuned.
We are privileged to bring you a fine dining experience right in your kitchen and your dining table. So today we are going to be making grilled lamb chops served with butternut puree with an accompaniment of roasted, or rather grilled, cucumber and onions. So get your recipe book and let's get cooking.
Today, I'm going to talk to someone who has a vast experience in matters cyber security.
I would say one of the challenges that I have encountered in the field, for one, there's a lot of misconception on how to get into cybersecurity, especially if you're still getting to explore the field. Cybersecurity is it's all rounded. Anyone can get attacked and it can come in any form. And cloud security is actually a field that's gaining popularity.
Lola ni programu inayokupa fursa ya kutizama video zozote pindi tu unapokuwa na nafasi. Hadithi za kukupa motisha, drama, maisha ya vyuo vikuu, teknolojia, masuala ya jamii, kuzuru maeneo tofauti, spoti, burudani na zaidi. Pata programu ya Lola sasa kwa rununu yako kwa yote unayohitaji.
This couple met in diaspora. They fell in love and had a child. They decided to move back home and make things official. Now, here is the bombshell. They found out that he were related. Wow. With Orbital Global, you can save yourself the embarrassment.
How well do you know your family lineage? Your cousins, uncles, aunties, nephews, nieces? Orbital is here for you. Visit www.orbitalglobal.com. Orbital Global, connecting families, uniting nations.
Unemployment has hit you hard. Your salary is meager. You decide to venture into business, but you're struggling to thrive in it. You would want to reap a big tip on how not to run into losses.
Forget the preachy business vlogs, the hyperbolic motivational speeches, and all the roads down desperation.
Hope has come with model stories from small successful entrepreneurs. We tell you these tales weekly on The Budding Entrepreneur. Join us as we help you make your trade profitable and often smile to the bank.
Ama kweli muomba chumvi huombea chunguche, nao wasemao husema nituze na unitunze ningali hai. Ulianza kama uvumi, uvumi ukawa minong'ono, minong'ono ikawa gumzo, na sasa sio uvumi tena, ni udhamini. Mawimbi ya lugha na spotlight, tuna koroma bila koma, katika ushirikiano kama Kiko na Digali, kukutuza na kukutunza.
Naam, nalo shirika la uchapishaji almaarufu Spotlight lina tuzo tele kwako wewe mtazamaji wa kipindi cha Mawimbi ya Lugha. Tazama, shiriki na ukishinda tutakutumia tuzo uliko.
Kila Jumapili saa 2 usiku, wanajopo Faridi na Fasaha watadadavua na kujibu maswali.
Wasomi ni nyinyi, wataalamu ni nyinyi, sisi tunawaelekeza.
Kumbuka, safari ni hatua, tena kikoa, nalo jungu kuu halikosi ukoko.
Karibu kwenye mitindo ya kipwani.
Nguo yangu wasenesi mwagire mtuzeha sana nenda finira chechemekwe. Nguo yangu wasenesi mwagire mtuzeha.
Yani unavyoona basi niko kipwani pwani tu.
Wali unapopika inatakana uko half cooked.
Bagari.
Niko katika kaunti ya Kilifi, magavazi ya Gede.
Stream live mitindo ya kipwani on our KUTV Facebook page every Saturday 4 p.m.
Now, Kenyatta University has a mandate of teaching, research, and community service. And the university has been giving legal aid through the legal aid clinic right here at Parklands. Now, we on Law Matters through KUTV, we are now extending that service so that it comes to you via television. We'll be giving you legal advice, information, and sometimes instructions on how you can go about protecting your rights. Welcome to our second segment of the show, and we'll quench your thirst on knowledge on law matters. I'm your host, Dr. Ngugi Kingara. I'm still with the Dean of Yes. I'm still with the Dean, Kenyatta University School of Law. Dean, now you gave us a very good introduction on many related issues that pertain to training and learning law, but the citizen is concerned about knowing what law is all about. And I'll start with a very basic question. Seems very easy, but it's hard. What is law?
Simply, law is a set of rules that are created and enforced by state and social institutions, and those rules prescribe conduct and they must be obeyed.
Okay. So what types of law do we have? Is it formal, informal? How do you rank them? How do you separate between what we know as rules of everyday living as opposed to I'm in court, I should behave in that certain way?
Well, when we talk about social institutions, then we bring in the aspect of informal law. Laws that emanate from social institutions such as the church, the family, the clan, and also the community. A good example would be in a lot of our households, we have a seat that is reserved for the head of the household, and you wouldn't be sitting on that seat. Well, maybe your father is wondering where to sit. There is no law that prescribes that that's your father's seat.
Yes.
So that's an example of informal law. When we talk about formal laws, we talk about those ones that are created by state institutions such as parliament, and they are also enforced by state institutions such as the police.
Okay, so then it means formal law has to have a formal structure within which this law happens. Can you explain to us how that one is structured?
Well, in terms of the sources of law, we'll talk about the Constitution as the highest ranking law in the land, and that means that all other laws must be aligned with the Constitution. We'll then talk about statutory law. These are laws that are made by Parliament, whether the Senate or the National Assembly. Then there are also administrative codes, those that are made for administrative purposes by bodies that have been given that mandate. We could give an example of the Public Officers Ethics Code of Ethics. We also have county laws that are made by county governments, and those are limited in terms of geography because they relate to a particular county, and also restricted in terms of the devolved functions of government.
Okay, so now I'm hearing every time when one hears about law, you hear courts, because court of law, and because this is formal law, then there has to be a structure that formalizes these institutions, because they are central to practice of law.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us how this is ranked?
There are two levels of courts. There are superior courts and there are also subordinate courts. When we talk about superior courts, we have the Supreme Court as the highest court in the land, and what the issues it can adjudicate on are also limited, so there is no much direct access to the Supreme Court. Then we have the Court of Appeal, and after that we have the High Court, and the High Court includes the specialized courts, the Employment and Labor Court, and also the Environment and Land Court. The second level is the subordinate courts, the Magistrates Courts, the Qadi Courts. The Qadi Courts specifically are meant for people that profess Islamic faith, and then we have the court martials that are meant for people in disciplined service, mainly the army.
Okay, well then with that basic understanding of the structure of law and the courts in Kenya, let us now focus on the rights of the citizen and how the citizen can safeguard those rights within now the structure that you've talked about and the central institutions that you've talked about. And to do this, maybe because it's easier to put the issues of law where they happen, in scenarios of real life experience, and I'll give you two. And one of those, which is the most common that we find, particularly those of us who live in cities, and we think of the things related to that aspect that I'm going to mention are central to our everyday living. And one of those is trade, where we find a mama mboga somewhere down the street. According to law, she's not supposed to be selling her wares there. So the police come and they decide to take her wares away and sometimes beat her up, and then they bundle her into a pickup truck and take her to jail or cell or whatever they take them. So are there any rights that are violated in relation to that incident that happens every day? And then the other one is, which is useful to mention because it's sort of new to us. We have the COVID-19 pandemic now. And with that has come some regulations that we are supposed to abide by, namely wearing of masks. So I'm walking down the streets, yes, the rule is out that I should not be wearing my mask, or I should be wearing my mask, then I'm found without one. I'm arrested, maybe bundled up and thrown into a pickup and taken to jail. What are the rights of these two citizens, and how can they safeguard them?
There are quite a number of rights there. First, in both scenarios, there are the rights of arrested persons because both of them have been arrested, and the rights of arrested persons provided in the Constitution is that the person must be informed of the reason for the arrest. So in this case, they must be informed what crime they are alleged to have committed or the laws they are alleged to have broken. Then there is also the right to be allowed to communicate either to a friend, a lawyer, or even a member of the family. There is also the right to be informed of the next course of action. So once they have been arrested and like Mama Boga, once she's bundled into the vehicle, it is proper that she's given information, or the Constitution would require that she's given information on what is to happen to her next. Is she to be taken to the police station, and once she's taken there, or to the county government offices, and once she's taken there, what should happen to her? And then there's also the right that they should not be held for more than 24 hours.
Okay. In the case of Mamboga, there was property destroyed. What rights surround that?
Yes, the Constitution also protects the right to property, that it should not be taken away without just cause, and where it is taken away, there should be prompt and fair compensation. So in this case, it means then that the county government askaris should not destroy her property, and they should also not confiscate it. And also, together with the person that was arrested for not wearing the mask, they have a right to a fair trial. That is, they should be taken before an impartial and independent tribunal that adjudicates over the allegations and makes a determination whether they have broken any law. And if the determination then is that they have broken any law, then the punishment that is prescribed in law is what should be meted to them. So it's not up to the arresting officer to decide that first they have broken a law and then confiscate the property in the case of Mama Boga, or even destroy it. And also in the case of the person not wearing the mask, the trend has been that even some have been beaten and ended up dying. So it's not up to the arresting officer to do that. They have a right to a fair trial, and the person to adjudicate, or the body to adjudicate that, is not the arresting officer whatsoever.
Okay. After all, I hear that you're innocent until proven guilty, isn't it?
That's true.
Yes. I think important to note here, viewers, is that the Constitution protects your rights. Now, let's talk about those rights. Where are the rights in the Constitution? I know some people know, but most of us don't know. So tell us about that.
The rights are contained in what is known as the Bill of Rights. It's chapter 4 of the Constitution, and actually it's the longest chapter. And also the fact that the rights are contained in the Constitution speaks to their importance, that it is the only power that the viewer has against an ever encroaching state, and that's why they are protected at the highest level and also in the highest law. There are quite a number of rights that are protected in the Constitution. As I said, it's the longest chapter.
So the most fundamental one you could begin with, if you were to, which one is that?
The right to life. It's the foundational right.
Obviously.
Yeah, in the sense that for one to enjoy all the other rights, they must sort of like be alive, be living. So the right to life is protected by the Constitution so that it cannot be taken away by state agents or even private actors unless that is authorized by law, and that is where issues of abortion and the death penalty arise.
Okay. There's this other one that, and it seems to be taken for granted all the time, and I feel it's related to that. And I'll give you a scenario for that so that you find the right to connect the two, which is I'm minding my own business. I'm in the marketplace. Someone screams thief, suggesting that I stole their phone. Before I know it, violence is meted on me. People are throwing stones, and some of them want to harm me really badly. What right do I have for the security of my own, my own security, really?
Yeah, certainly that shouldn't happen to you. But the Constitution also protects the right to security and liberty of the person, meaning that you are protected from all forms of violence, physical, emotional, and psychological, and from whatever sources, whether private or public. So in the instance of mob justice, that's private violence, and the Constitution prohibits that.
Okay, any other key right? I know that all rights are important, but which one comes to mind that we take for granted all the time, but you wish to mention here?
I could start with the right to privacy, and that protects the dignity of the viewer in the sense that they should not have their person, their property, and also their home searched without just cause, and also information and data about them revealed without proper, it should only be done when it is necessary.
Very important, because currently we are having a lot of data collection through many channels that sometimes we are not aware about. I'm always surprised that someone wants to know my details when I'm going to the supermarket, and I don't know what happens to those details, my data. So that is very important for you to mention. But there's one that comes to mind right now, because we are in the situation of political electioneering. Which rights does the citizen have and or care about that usually are violated?
Well, that bundle of rights is known as political rights. There is the right to vote, and when we talk about the right to vote, it should be by secret ballot, so that nobody should tell you how to vote, and also universal adult suffrage, so that every adult over 18 should be able to vote. And when we think about being able to vote, we only think about it in the context of maybe the government has not registered you as a voter, but there are also issues that come from private sources, like this employer who will not give you a day off to go and vote. That sort of violation, the Constitution wouldn't allow or does not allow. Then there is the right to join a political party and also campaign for that political party. There's also the right to offer yourself for public office, so the right to, as an independent candidate or as a member of a political party.
Yes, I had one there that my boss wouldn't let me go vote. I'm not talking about my boss now. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
Wouldn't let me go vote. And that is a good segue to talking about the other most important rights for most people, because they are either employees or employers. Which are those significant ones that we should remind ourselves, or the viewer should want to hear about?
Labor rights, we'll have a whole episode on labor rights, but what I would say about them now is that the Constitution protects the right to fair remuneration, so that you should be compensated in a manner that is commensurate to the work done, then reasonable working conditions. There are instances where workers work for long hours and sometimes they cannot even take a break. That goes against reasonable working conditions. There's also the right to strike and the right to join a trade union and also be involved in the activities of the trade union. But also the employer has some rights. Okay. So for the viewer who is an employer, he has a right to join the employer organization and also be involved in the activities of that employer's organization.
Okay, so at least, of course, when I'm paying salary, I'm thinking, I own you. Are there rights against me thinking that way?
The Constitution prohibits in absolute terms slavery and servitude. So the question of owning your employee does not arise at all, because also of the issue of dignity. The whole reason why we protect rights is to protect the dignity of Kenyans and the viewer in particular. So when we talk about owning your employee, we're moving away from human dignity, and because when you own someone, then they cannot determine what they want to do. They are under your mercy and at your behest. The Constitution cannot countenance such a situation.
And so I guess we are reminding the viewers, let your maid go home if she says she doesn't want to work there anymore. Don't detain them. I think it translates to slavery. I think that's what you're talking about. So excellent. I believe our viewer is now better informed on these rights, and I know that once they realize what the Constitution is about, it's not just about those of us who are in politics, because every time we hear the Constitution is someone mentioning a chapter because they are running for a seat somewhere. Now, but there are other important rights that protect the vulnerable. Can you mention some of these? Because it's important to consider that not everyone is endowed the same way, and some people cannot protect themselves because they are at a stage in their lives that they cannot do that. So can you mention some of those?
Yes, the Constitution does recognize the concept of vulnerability. So in that regard, it protects the rights of children as a vulnerable group. They are protected from harmful cultural practices. They are also protected from violence in the home, and even in school. We have had debates about caning of children. The Constitution prohibits that for children. And then there are the youth. Theirs is more of affirmative action, but they're also protected from harmful cultural practices. In terms of affirmative action, it's about them being able to access opportunities, whether we are talking about education, we are talking about employment opportunities. That's the sort of vulnerability that the Constitution recognizes for the youth. There's also older members of society, and those is about their dignity and the right to receive reasonable care from the state and also their families, and also to be able to participate in the affairs of the state or the society in whatever way. Then there are persons with disability as a vulnerable group, and the Constitution requires that public and private agencies accommodate them. So the main principle is the accommodative principle. So, and also the affirmative action, in the sense that 5% of all appointive positions in the public service and elected bodies should go to persons with disability.
So how would we enforce these rights? For example, that 5%, how does the system allow for a check, like come to the workplace and do an inspection, or how do we get this data so that we know whether we are, staying within the rights of those vulnerable people, such as those people with disability?
The Constitution also sets out institutions that are to monitor the implementation of rights, especially by state agencies. So there is the National Gender and Equality Commission that is charged with implementation of rights of vulnerable groups, like persons with disability. There's also the system of performance contracting, where state agencies report on the percentage of their staff that are persons with disability. It's not a perfect picture, but there's been quite a bit of effort, and even just the awareness that has been created among government and state agencies, but the country can do far much better.
Okay. Now, I know this is maybe look like, although they say there's no stupid question, but we have the Children's Court.
Yes.
Do we have courts for the elderly? because if you say attach Children's Court with vulnerability, elders are vulnerable, and we do know that as we get older. Are there special courts that facilitate the hearing of cases that these people may have? I know it may seem funny, but yes.
Yeah, at the moment there are no special courts that deal with the rights of older members of society, but there's been a lot of progress even at the regional level in terms of addressing the rights of older members of the society. But also, like any other right in the Constitution, they could approach the High Court for redress, and also the specialized human rights agencies, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights.
Okay, interesting, because in fact this came to mind because if you look at the abuse of rights for children and those for the elderly, the treatment that sometimes the elderly get, that's similar to that of children. But quite interesting. I think that is very educative, and I think anyone can pick in some of these sections and be able to know. I know that we're going to be talking about the children's, the law that relates to children within family law. But in terms of these other areas, I think it's very important that our viewer gets to know the Constitution, because you will find that everything that you need taken care of in matters of law is in that document. And by the way, it is true that the whole Constitution was actually published, or the snippets we got in the newspapers were just segments of that, or did I see it wrongly?
At what point?
There was a point when there was a revision, or what is it called? When the dissemination of information about the Constitution, I saw as if there were inserts in the newspapers that looked like a document, a thick document.
Yes, it was actually the entire Constitution in 2009 and 2010. Most of our audience here wouldn't, know about that, but
Did you
yes.
know? It seemed like a stupid question at the first when I raised it. Yes, so I think the viewer should be well served with that knowledge that actually that document exists in their hands. So in old newspapers. So before you wrap the last of the meat with it, I think you go get the Constitution and read it and get to know about your rights.
Now the viewer can even purchase it from the government printer, and also it's available online where you print it out and then you have your copy of the Constitution.
Okay, I think now we are quite informed, and during the final segment, if you have any questions that relate to any of the topics that we've discussed, we'll be very happy to tackle those questions. We'll be right back.
KUTV, in conjunction with Kenyatta University Funeral Home, is now offering death announcements immediately following our news bulletins at 7 p.m. At this sorrowful time, as you share in your grief, allow us to communicate your announcement of your loved one on KUTV in both Kiswahili and English. For more details, kindly inquire at the KU Funeral Home Service Desk or call 0736 928 380 or dial 020-359-9054.
We are privileged to bring you a fine dining experience right in your kitchen and your dining table. So today we are going to be making grilled lamb chops served with butternut puree with an accompaniment of roasted, or rather grilled, cucumber and onions. So get your recipe book and let's get cooking.
Ukiwa na dukuduku la michezo, tunafungua sanduku la dukuduku kwa ufahamu zaidi. Kila danadana, mitimko, mifiatuko na harakati zote ugani, sisi ni wako mwandani. Kukurukakara zote nyanjani, haziwezi kuangaziwa zaidi ya micharazo michezoni. Mimi mwanaspoti wako matata Peter Pinches Mwaora, ndakuwa na jopo lenye maarifa sufufu, nikufahamishe na nikuburudishe wewe shabiki shakiki, kwa uhakiki na kindakindaki.
This couple met in diaspora. They fell in love and had a child. They decided to move back home and make things official. Now, here is the bombshell. They found out that they were related. Wow. With Orbital Global, you can save yourself the embarrassment.
How well do you know your family lineage? Your cousins, uncles, aunties, nephews, nieces? Orbital is here for you. Visit www.orbitalglobal.com. Orbital Global, connecting families, uniting nations.
Unemployment has hit you hard. your salary is meager. You decide to venture into business, but you're struggling to thrive in it. You would want to reap a big tip on how not to run into losses.
Forget the preachy business vlogs, the hyperbolic motivational speeches, and all the roads down desperation.
Hope has come with model stories from small successful entrepreneurs. We tell you these tales weekly on The Budding Entrepreneur. Join us as we help you make your trade profitable and often smile to the bank.
I'm a freshman in Kenyatta University. This is all what I've heard about campus. Campus is full of freedom.
Ni cumulative.
Mchezo hiyo ili poka gani kwani?
I'm a fourth year student and I mostly hang out at shopping center. I'm an arboretum, and what I'd tell first years is it's never too late to start being serious.
Welcome back. We have talked about the structure of the legal system of Kenya. We have also talked about the Bureau of Rights, and we have had the various rights that relate to all of us in our own categories and also in the various aspects of life that we lead. And now, Dean, if I may ask, how can the viewer now enforce his or her rights once they are violated?
The Constitution provides for specialized human rights agencies. We have the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, we have the Commission on Administrative Justice, and we also have the National Gender and Equality Commission. So for those, the National Gender and Equality Commission deals with issues to do with discrimination. So if the viewer has been discriminated or is of the view that they have been discriminated based on any ground, they can then approach the National Gender and Equality Commission. In terms of fair administrative rights, like you go to a government office and you do not receive the sort of service that you expect, the viewer can then visit the Commission on Administrative Justice, that is the Office of the Ombudsman. For every other right, the viewer can go to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Now, these specialized agencies, they will listen to the viewer's complaint. The viewer will put down the complaint, attach any material evidence, and then the commissions or the agencies will deliberate on the issue and get in touch with the relevant government agency or the private actor that has violated their rights. Then there will be a recommendation. That is a free service. Then there is the enforcement of rights through the High Court, and the viewer can move to the High Court if they feel that their rights have been violated, or even in the instance of a threat of violation of those rights. And the requirements of moving to the High Court, the technicalities have been done away with. There's a bit of payment, but it's reasonable payment also.
Okay, now, do we have a provision by government where we can find a pool of pro bono, so to speak, lawyers who can assist us?
Yes, the Constitution provides for access to justice, and in that context, the National Legal Aid Service has been set up. It has a pool of lawyers, and the Kenyatta University Legal Aid Clinic belongs to that, pool of lawyers, where the viewer can then get a lawyer that can assist them in whatever subject matter, and it's a pro bono service. Also, the National Legal Aid Service, which is established by the Kenya Legal Aid Act, would allow that if the viewer is indigent, he can then also, yes, he should be able to get a pro bono lawyer to work with him through the claim for his rights.
How do you prove that one is indigent? I'm wondering whether the viewer knows what indigent is. What is that?
Poor person, one that cannot afford the services of a lawyer. Yeah, and I do agree that it is difficult to prove who is indigent. Even the criterion that is set out by the law is subject to a lot of questions. But there is a sense in which it has been appreciated that marginalized communities are indigent, and also children, because of their vulnerability, they're not so much indigent, but because of their vulnerability, they should be given pro bono legal aid.
Actually, our country is unique, like others who receive refugees, for example. I know this will sound like a sidetrack, but these people are vulnerable in a sense, and I don't know, are there any legal services being offered there for them to be heard? Because they also have issues with, that pertain to law.
Yes, they are vulnerable, and much more their vulnerability is enhanced by the fact that they are not in their own country. So again, the National Legal Aid Act does contemplate them as people that are deserving of legal aid, and also there are quite a number of civil society organizations that work on refugee rights.
Okay, very important to know. Does one have an opportunity to file if you're within a group that is vulnerable or indigent, to channel your requests, like form a group where now you can petition and say, us here. And I remember one of the cases recently, some people who came to this country many years ago as a group, and they were trying to push for citizenship. Do those people have a channel through which they can register their indigency, if you will, and then they get served?
Perhaps still through the National Legal Aid Service.
Okay. Right, viewer, we are in the third segment, which is the critical point where you participate, because we get to answer your questions. So anyone who has questions, you may pose those questions and we'll be happy to respond to them. Now, I see there's a question in the back.
Okay, thank you so much for the insight. So my question is, based on the fact that you've mentioned the right to life, so are there instances where abortion can be procured legally here in Kenya?
Yes, Dean, that's a very good question, because I do know that we talked about informal law, and some of those laws relate to religion. There are issues that religion has about the question on abortion. So what's the answer to that question that the viewer has?
There is not a proper answer or a settled answer, but what I would say is that first, we appreciate that the right to life is not absolute, and also that our constitution protects life from conception, and that's where the whole question of abortion comes in. But the same constitution, under the right to life, does provide that there are instances when the life of the mother is in danger, that then abortion can be allowed. What hasn't happened is that there is no law to permit or to give the parameters within which legal abortion should take place. But the reality is that there is a lot of abortion that is going on backstreet, and a lot of women are losing their lives. So probably it's a conversation that this country needs to have, and quite fast.
Maybe one day we'll have a whole show about that, so that the viewer can get proper answers. I do know that that is restricted at the moment. And because we have other questions that our viewers want to pose, let's have another one at the front row.
Thank you for this opportunity. On the right to privacy, please help me understand on its application in the current society, especially where information is posted all over the internet. Thank you.
All right, very critical question at this time of proliferation of information, and everyone can have access to that information through their mobile phones, that's even when they speak. So what's the response to our viewers' question?
Well, at the very basic level, the right to privacy protects the right of the viewer not to have information and data about them unnecessarily revealed. So if information about you is posted on social media and you do not want it there, then you can request to have it removed. And if it's not removed, then there is a violation of your rights, and the viewer can then assert their rights through the court or through the specialized human rights agencies. But also, much more critical is the aspect of information that we post ourselves.
Okay, let's have two more questions and then we wind up, because I know that many questions are coming through, but we can only
thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay.
So this is the question I'd like to pose. What is the difference between the right to religion and the right to manifest religion? Thank you.
Okay, you got the question?
I did. The right to religion is the belief aspect. So believing in whatever one chooses to believe in, and the requirement is that the state should protect that in absolute terms, whatever the viewer chooses to believe in, whether it's in a frog, in a tree, or in this God who is unseen, the state should protect that. It is the manifestation that should be limited, because then the manifestation is through worship, is through certain communal activities. We have talked about worship. We could talk about adherence, such as baptism and so on and so forth. That should be limited for the sake of public order, because you can imagine if now you started having a worship moment
at the middle of the show.
It would be a bit chaotic. Yeah, so that's why manifestation should be limited.
Okay, excellent. Let's have one more question and then we end it there. The series of questions at the back over there.
Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to ask, on what basis can the freedom of expression be limited? Thank you.
Okay, limitation on freedom of expression, touchy issue.
Yes, especially now in the context of the elections, and also because a human being cannot exist without, self-expression in one form or the other, whether it's dress, whether it's speech, but it can be limited, and it is limited in the Constitution when it incites violence, when you express yourself to incite violence, and also when there is hate speech. Then it is limited, and it's expressly limited in the Constitution.
Okay, I think that will do it for today. I think so much to digest, and I think our viewer has something to cling on to in the matters of law. Viewers, we have come to the end of our premiere show. But before we wind up, we want to thank very much our chief guest and also our key partner in this show, Dr. Kabata, who is also the Dean of Kenyatta University School of Law, a prestigious institution that is supporting us in doing the legal aid service via television. We also want to thank our global green grants funders with whom you are in contact, who are also supporting us. And I also want to thank our studio audience today for being very vibrant and for the questions that you pose. Also the crew of the show. And thank you and goodbye.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea